Good good afternoon, world. This is Ivan O'Mara. So I decided to make one video showing my face in my bathroom. I'm in my bathroom right now. I thought it'd be cool to make a video about the Bible. Yeah, I might talk about the transformation topic afterwards. I'm going to challenge the Christians out there. So all you Christians out there who believe that Jesus wasn't born, he was always there side by side with the Father, the eternal Son of God. I disagree. I think he was there side by side with the Father, but he was born first before he was there side by side with the Father. Hence why Jesus is called the Son, and the Father is called the Father, and the Holy Spirit is called the Holy Spirit. I made a couple videos about this before. I believe Jesus was alive. I think there's enough evidence in the Bible to show that Jesus was born. And that's why he's called the beloved Son of God. But he was born in eternity past. Obviously. So I'll talk about the Bible, what I believe about the Bible. The Bible's fantasy, supposedly. What I supposedly believe about the Bible, right? I'm the son of God, but I know you Christians, all you Christians out there, you have your man religion. I'm going to challenge your beliefs. I think you're wrong. I think Jesus was actually born. I don't agree with the Mormons. The Mormons believe that Jesus was what? Excuse the quality. The quality of my phone's not that good right now. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe it's because I'm making a video in the bathroom. I have my table here and I'm making a video in the bathroom. But anything out of there is good enough, right? I'm going to challenge the Christians. I believe that Jesus was actually born. Ivan, that's blasphemy. No, I believe Jesus was born, but he was born in eternity. So I'm going to start off going through Bible verses. Let's go to Colossians 1:15. Colossians 1:15, okay? Colossians 1:15. I'm using the King James Bible because I believe the King James Bible has the best translation. I recommend you stay away from NIV. Though NIV has a bad translation. I think the King James is probably the best Bible you should use, or New King James. Go to Colossians 1:15. I'm going to go to Colossians 1:15. So I'm going to go to 1673. Let me just find it here. 1673. Almost there, guys. 1673. I haven't read the Bible in a long time, so you gotta excuse me. I'm a bit sloppy today. 1673. So I can challenge you Christians out there. Because I know all you Christians think Ivan's crazy. He thinks Jesus was born. Okay, I'll prove it to you. Let me read the passage. See what I mean. Don't hate me, guys. I'm saying. 16. What is it again? Give me a sec here. It's 1673. Yeah. Almost there, guys. Give me a sec here. Don't hate me, I'm saying. Don't hate me, Sam. Don't hate me, David Wood. I'm saying. I think you guys are wrong. I think Jesus was born in eternity, obviously. Okay, I'm on Colossians now. Okay. So, we're on Colossians. So, let's go to Colossians 1:15. Okay. So let's read. So, this is Colossians 1:15. He, Jesus, is the image of the invisible God. Why is Paul calling Jesus the image of the invisible God? Because he was born. He's God's son, obviously. He's the image of the invisible God when he became flesh. I agree. When Paul says Jesus is the image of the invisible God, that means talking about him in flesh, obviously. But I think there's a bigger meaning to that. Jesus is called the image of the invisible God because he's God's son. He was born from God, obviously. Just like a baby is the image of what? Of his father. They have the same DNA, obviously. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Why is Paul calling Jesus the firstborn of all creation? Ivan, that's preeminence. Yes, I agree. But I believe Jesus was actually born. Obviously. Obviously, right? He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Now, Christians will say, yeah, Ivan, firstborn means preeminence. I agree. Jesus does have preeminence over creation, but I believe Jesus was actually born. He was actually born, obviously. He was born eternity past because he's God's beloved son. So I'm saying, Jesus is called the firstborn because he was the first man, the first person ever to be born. He's the firstborn of God, and because he has the Father's divine nature, he's the eternal Son of God because he has the Father's eternal nature. So even though he was born, he's still eternal because he has the eternal divine nature of God. That's my point, obviously. Because when you look at other passages, it says Jesus is eternal. You look at other passages, it says, John says Jesus is in the bosom of the Father. You look at other passages where Jesus says, I came forth from God and I entered the world. What does it mean? What does it mean when Jesus says he came forth from God? What does that mean? Either he came forth from the Father and he entered creation, I don't know, but he came forth from God. What does that mean? He was born from the Father. He came forth from the Father. That's what it means. Obviously, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Verse 16, for by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible. I agree with that, supposedly, right? Whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him, right? Because he's the heir. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist, and he is the head of the body. The church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. He's the first man to ever resurrect to life, obviously. Then all things he may have preeminence. Obviously. In the context, I know what it means. It means preeminence, but I believe Paul is being literal. Jesus was the first man born. He was the first person born ever. Ivan, that's blasphemy. There's no proof of that. Okay. Let me go to John 1. I challenge you Christians out there, Susanna. I disagree with the Christians who say Jesus is son. Yeah, so in eternity past, the Father's like, yeah, Jesus, I'll be your father. And Jesus is like, yeah, I'll be your son. They just made up a name. Yeah, okay, you'll be my son and I'll be your father. Yeah, that's what happened in eternity. No, Jesus was born. That's why he's called the Son of God, guys. Yeah, man. Let me go to John. Where's John? I gotta look at the John 15:10. Let's go to 15:10, guys. I'm using the King James Bible. I think the King James has the best translation. Or a New King James. New King James is good too. 15:10. Now, follow what I'm saying, guys. Like, I want to read this carefully. That way you guys see my argument here. Don't hate me, Sam. Don't hate me, David Whitlam, Sam. Let me read this. And if you read this, how can you not see Jesus was born? Anyways, let's read it carefully here, guys, okay? All you Christians, pay attention. I'm going to prove to you that Jesus was born. He wasn't just side by side with the Father. No, he was born, obviously, in eternity. Hence why he's called the beloved Son of God. Hence why he's the heir to the kingdom, obviously. Let's read the Gospel according to John. Obviously. In the beginning was the Word. That's Jesus, obviously. And the Word was with God. What does that mean, the Word was with God? He was there side by side with the Father. Yeah, I agree with that. But what does it mean when it says the Word was with God? Just like a baby is pregnant with child, Jesus was with the Father in eternity because he's in the bosom of the Father, and he was born, obviously. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God because Jesus has the eternal nature of the Father. That's why he's just as much God as the Father. He was in the beginning with God. I agree with that. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. This man, I'm going to read the 16 here. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light, which is Jesus, obviously. That was a true light which gives light to every man coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God. So you notice how John is making the parallel of those who believe in Jesus become children of God, just like Jesus is a child of God too. He's God's beloved son, obviously. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him to them, he gave the right to become children of God to those who believe in his name, who were born, notice how he makes a connection here, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So just like Jesus was born of God, he came down to earth to make those who believe in him children of God too, obviously, because he's a perfect representation of God, obviously. Paul makes the connection here. Who were born not of blood, just like Jesus was not born of blood, obviously, he was born miraculously, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father. What does the only begotten of the Father mean, guys? Ivan, it means he's a possessor of God's nature. I agree with that. But why is Paul using the word begotten? Because Jesus was born. He was born, guys. He wasn't just there side by side with the Father in eternity. No. He was born in eternity, and after that, he was there side by side with the Father. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. The begotten of the Father. There's a reason why they call Jesus the only begotten Son of God, because he's God's Son. He's actually God's Son. He was birthed in eternity, obviously. John bore witness of him, and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, Who he comes after me is prepared before me, for he was before me, and of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. Sorry. I'm reading up to verse 18, not 16, guys, sorry. He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me, and of his fullness we have all received grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son. Again, John's using the word begotten. What does that mean? Ivan, it means he possesses the nature of God. Ivan, that's what it means. I agree with that. But look it up in the dictionary, guys. Begotten means you're born, obviously. I know it means it also means you can have the same nature. I get that. But the reason why John's using the word begotten because Jesus was actually born, guys. He said begotten 2 times now, right? No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son who was in the bosom of the Father. He has declared him. What does John mean, guys, when he says Jesus is in the bosom of the Father? What does that mean? It means they have a close relationship together. I agree with that, but there's a deeper meaning to that. Jesus was in the Father. Just like in the beginning, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Just like a baby is pregnant with what? A baby is pregnant with a mother is pregnant with her baby. Jesus was in the Father, and the Father birthed Jesus in eternity. That's why he's called the only begotten Son of God. And that's why in Colossians 1:15, John says Jesus is the firstborn of all creation, because he's the first one ever born. That's why Jesus is the heir to the kingdom. That's why he came down to save his creation, because he's the heir. He's the heir to the kingdom because he's the firstborn ever. Let me read again. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, he used the word begotten again, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. What does that mean, guys? When Paul says Jesus is in the bosom of the Father, what does that mean, guys? There's a deeper meaning to that. He was in the Father, obviously, and then he was brought forth in eternity past. Was Jesus created, Ivan? He was created in the sense that he became conscious in eternity past, in that sense. But he was always there at the Father because he has eternal DNA of God. That's my point, Sarah. He's still eternal, guys. It's not that's blasphemy. No, it's not blasphemy. It's not blasphemy, Sam. It's not blasphemy, David Wood. He's still eternal, or Anthony Raj. He's still eternal, except that he what? He was born in eternity. And what? He what? He has the eternal DNA. Because he has the eternal DNA of God, he's still God. Just as much God as the Father, because he has the same DNA as the Father. He's the begotten, eternal Son of God. The firstborn over all creation. First one ever born, hence why he has preeminence over the world. Just like Adam was the first man ever born, and God gave him preeminence over the animals and everything in creation. It's a symbolism of the likeness and image of God. So I'm saying, guys, Sounds like, holy shit, we know your shit. Yes, I know my shit. Now, one more verse here. Let's turn to John 1:16. Sorry, let's turn to John 16:28. Now, I'm done with the Bible here, guys. Now, I want to get this to your Christians' mind, because you guys think, I'm going to ask you this question, Christians. Why is Jesus called the Son? Why is the Father called the Father? Like, they just come with their name randomly. Okay, the Father's okay, Jesus, you'll be my Son, I'll be your Father. Yeah, that's what happened in eternity, obviously. No. Jesus was born, hence why the Father is called the Father, and Jesus is called the Son of the beloved Son of God. That's why he's the heir to the kingdom. Let's go to John 16:28. Sam knows all these verses, obviously. He knows the Bible inside and out, right? I'm going to challenge you, Christians. What do you think about what I'm saying here? Sarah. And after this, I'm done. I'm not making any. I'm not showing my face ever again this year. I'll show my face maybe four times next year, and that's it. I'm not going to you guys do like that, Sarah. Let's show in John 16:28. Christians, listen carefully to what I'm saying here. Don't hate me, guys. I'm saying. Listen carefully to what I'm saying here. I challenge you guys to refute me in what I'm saying here. I can have many passages that refute you. I say Jesus is eternal. I agree Jesus is eternal, but he was born first. Why is he called the Son, guys? Why is he called the Son? Why is the Father called the Father? They just came up with that name randomly, Ivan. Yeah, Jesus, I don't know, eternity passed. Jesus said, okay, I'll be your son, Father, you'll be my Father. That's what happened. No, Jesus was born. He was in the bosom of the Father. He was born, obviously. He came forth from God. He's the only begotten, use the word begotten, Son of God. There you go. John 16:28. John 16:28, guys. Sounds like, Ivan, I love your Bible videos. Yeah, I'm only going to make this video and that's it, man. You guys go, you're going to be left behind when I'm games, I'm sorry. Okay, John 16:20, John 16:28. I'm looking for it. Did I get the verse wrong? This is John 16. Why is it not showing up here? Did they cut this off the Bible? I don't know. Oh, sorry, I'm on Corinthians. My bad. John 16:28. Okay. Yeah, my bad, guys. I was looking at the wrong chapter. John 16:28. John 16:28. There it is. Okay. Okay. Let me start from verse 25. Sam knows this verse, obviously. John 16:25 to 28. Let's read, guys. Let's read. Okay. These things I have spoken to you in figurative languages. So Jesus spoke in figurative language. But the time is coming when I will no longer speak to you in figurative language. Now Jesus is being shared with his disciples. But I will tell you plainly about the Father. He's the God's beloved Son. He knows everything about the Father. In that day you will ask in my name, and I do not say to you that I shall pray to the Father for you. For the Father himself loves you, because you have loved me, and I believe that I came forth from God. So I'm going to ask you this question, Christians. What did Jesus mean when he said he came forth from God? Ivan, he came forth from God in the sense that he came from heaven to earth. I agree with that. But no, Jesus said, I'm speaking literally to you guys, I came forth from God because I was born from God. I'm God's beloved Son. I'm God's beloved begotten Son. I was born, obviously, right? I came forth from the Father and I've come into the world. So Jesus came forth from the Father in eternity, and now he came into the world in time. That's why Paul says he's the firstborn of all creation. Sounds like, no, Ivan, that means preeminence. I agree with you, Sam. It means preeminence, but I think there's a deep meaning to that. I think Jesus was born. That's why over and over again, John uses the word begotten. Jesus says, I came forth from God. He says the firstborn of all creation. When you add everything up together, it makes sense that Jesus was born. That's why he's called the Son of God, obviously. I came forth from the Father and have come into the world. He came forth from the Father in eternity, from heaven, obviously. I agree. When Jesus says he came forth from the Father, it means he came forth from heaven, obviously. But I think it's a deeper meaning. He literally came forth from God in eternity, and he now came into the world in time. And again, I leave the world and go back to the Father in eternity, obviously, in heaven, obviously. So, Sarah. Yeah. And I will read what the disciples say. His disciples said to him, "See now you are speaking plainly and using no figure of speech. Now we are sure that you know all things and have no need that anyone should question you. You by this we believe that you came forth from God." Samsara. We believe that you have came forth from God, obviously. Yeah. The disciples said, yeah. If anyone should question you by this, we believe that you came forth from God. Obviously. Yes, he did come from heaven, obviously. I agree with that. But Jesus literally came forth from God in eternity. That's why he says, I came forth from God and have entered the world. In Colossians 1:15, Paul says Jesus is the firstborn of all creation, which means preeminence, obviously. But it also means literal. He was born in eternity past. He that's in the bosom of the Father, he has made him known. What does it mean that the Word was with God? Because they're side by side with the Father. I agree with that. I agree with you, Christians, supposedly, right? Jesus was there side by side with the Father, but he was born first. He was the firstborn of all creation. Hence why he's the heir to the kingdom, the heir to creation, because he's the first one born ever. Just like Adam, when he was born, he came into being, obviously. He's called the Son of God, and God gave him preeminence over creation. Okay, because you're human and you're the firstborn, you have preeminence over all the animals and the earth that I created. Yes, God says, "Let us make man our image in our likeness." What does that mean, guys? In our likeness, what does that mean? What does that mean, guys? In our likeness, in our image. Yes, they have emotions, they have souls, like a soul like God has. I think it's literal, like the way the Trinity is. That's how I'm going to create mankind. Obviously, Samsara. I gave birth to Jesus. Jesus was birthed in eternity past. Hence, what? I'm also going to have human beings give birth to their babies. Just like Jesus is my baby. Yeah, that's what I believe the Bible says. Sometimes like, holy shit, Ivan, you're fucking gifted. Like, you make me think about that. Like, in the bosom of the Father, Ivan. Yeah, in the bosom of the Father, he has made him known. Just like a baby's in the bosom of a mother's womb. Samsara. Just like a baby's in the bosom of a mother's womb. That's my point, guys. Samsara. I might make a 1-hour video, guys, and I'm done. This will be. I thought it'd be cool to show my face, making a video in my bathroom, obviously. And I'm done. I'm not making any more videos after this year. I'm going to continue with the Black String Reserve. And next year I might pull out maybe 4 videos for you guys to keep you happy, obviously. But I already signed out. You guys always signed out, obviously. So, Sarah. All the Christians. I'm going to challenge all you Christians here. If you prove that I'm wrong, Ivan, you're wrong. You believe Jesus was created. No, I don't believe he was created. I believe he was birthed in eternity. But because he's eternal, he was still technically always there with the Father. He's still eternal, but he was born first in eternity. That's why it says in the beginning, obviously before creation, was the Word. And the Word was with God. Because the other time I saw the Father, I agree with that, but he was it says, later on, it says he's in the bosom of the Father. He was in the Father. Just like a baby is in a mother's womb. Jesus was birthed in eternity. That's why he's called the only begotten Son of God. That's why Jesus says, I came forth from God in eternity, now I enter the world in time as a man. And because Jesus came forth from God in eternity, he's the firstborn of all creation. You put all the pieces together. That's why he's called the heir throughout the Bible. He's the Father's baby. He's the heir to the kingdom. And the Father and Spirit appointed everything to Jesus because Jesus is the heir. He's the first one ever born. He's the heir to creation. The Father's beloved begotten Son. The Father was given to the world. You guys see what I'm saying, or I was just saying yes? I thought it'd be cool to pull up these three passages in the Bible. Colossians 1:15, read it. John 16:28 and John 1:16 to like John 1 to like John 1, read John 1 to 1, read John 1 to 18. You guys see what I'm saying here. See what I'm saying here? No, I was just saying yes. I'm a little tired, guys. Yeah. My camera quality is not the best here because I'm making it in the washroom. I have other lights, but the lights, man, you have the fan noise. I don't want to put the fan noise. That's why I have to what? I have to make it in the bathroom. I decided to make it in the bathroom. I need a table. My room's a mess. That's why I wanted to make it a video in the bathroom. I have my table here. I have my Bible here. This is not my Bible, but yeah. Some Sarah. He's the image of the invisible God, guys. What does that mean? Ivan, he's the image of God in flesh. I agree with that, obviously. But the reason why he's called the image because he's a bearer. He's a bearer of the nature of God, and he's God's beloved son. He came forth from God, obviously. Just like a baby is the image of his mother, obviously, right? Yeah, a baby is in the image of his mother, obviously. I'm just trying to see if I can find other passages here. But yeah. Obviously. Some Sarah. Sounds like, holy shit, I mean, you're gifted, man. In the bosom of the Father, yeah, Sam, what does that mean? Ivan, it means he had an eternal relationship with God. I agree with that. But he was born. He was in the Father and he was born. That's why Paul says he's the firstborn. Ivan, it means preeminence. I agree. It means preeminence. But I think it doesn't even mean that. I think he was born. He's the first one ever born. That's why he's called throughout the Bible, Jesus is called the heir. The Father has appointed all judgment onto the Son. Why? Because Jesus is the Father's beloved Son. He's the Father's baby. Hence why Jesus is the heir. Just like a prince is the heir to the king's throne, obviously, right? And the king gives all power to the prince. Same thing with Jesus. They call him the Prince of Peace. Guys, why is Jesus called the Prince of Peace? So you think about this. You have other passages where Jesus is called a king, and you have other passages where he's called a prince. Why? Because he's the heir, obviously. Jesus is the heir to the kingdom. That's why they call him the Prince of Peace. They also call him the King of Kings, obviously. Because he's the heir to the kingdoms, I'm sorry. Sounds like, holy shit, Ivan, you're fucking gifted. In the bosom of the Father, I'm like, yes, Sam, in the bosom of the Father. What does that mean, guys? Ivan, you're wrong. Okay, prove that I'm wrong. I'm going to ask you Christians this question. Prove to me that I'm wrong. Why is Jesus, I'm going to ask you Christians this question. Why is Jesus called the Son? And why is the Father called the Father? Answer that question for me, guys. We can't answer the question, Ivan. The Father's called the Father, Ivan, because he's just the Father, Ivan. And Jesus is just the Son. So in eternity past, the Father just called Jesus his own Son, and Jesus says, you're my Father. That's what happened. So Jesus was there side by side with the Father, and the Father said, okay, you'll be my Son, and I'll be your Father. That's what happened. No. There's a reason why the Father is called the Father, because the Father birthed Jesus in eternity. Jesus was with God, and he was God, obviously, and he was in the bosom of the Father, and he came forth from God. That's why he's the Son of God, and that's why the Father is the Father of Jesus. Jesus is the Father's baby, and the Father is Jesus' daddy. And that's why Jesus is the heir to the kingdom. Yeah. You know, Ivan, you make a good argument. Yeah, I'm gifted, guys. I know what I'm talking about. Ivan, I never heard this kind of argument before. Jesus birthed in eternity, yes. Jesus was birthed in eternity, guys. Hence why he's called the Son. And the Father is his Father. If he wasn't birthed in eternity, why is the Father called the Father? Why is Jesus called the Son, guys? They just came up with a random name. Yeah, you have to come up with a reason why Jesus is called the Son. Ivan, because the Father just called him his Son. Yeah, so Jesus was there side by side with the Father, and the Father is just like, I love you, Son. And I don't know. I love you, Son. You'll be my Son. And Jesus is like, yeah, you'll be my Father. That's what happened. No. Jesus was with God, like a mother's pregnant with a baby, and he was birthed in eternity past. That's why Paul says he's the first one of all creation. Colossians 1:15. He's the image of the invisible God. Which means, obviously, he represents the Father in flesh, obviously. But he's literally the Son of God, guys. But he had a miraculous divine birth. He didn't have a human birth in time. He had a miraculous birth in eternity, obviously. So Sarah, just like I was created miraculously from my Father, hence why I'm the Son of God. But I'm just as much God. I'm still God because I have the DNA of God. I can live forever. I'm eternal. I can live forever. It's the same thing with Jesus. Because Jesus has the eternal nature of God, guys, even though he was born, he's still eternal, guys. It's not blasphemy. He's eternal begotten, which means born, Son of God. He bears the eternal nature of God. That's why he has the same DNA. He can do everything the Father can do because he has the same DNA as the Father. And that's why he's the heir to creation. That's why he came, supposedly, to save the world from their sin, obviously, because he's the heir to the kingdom. And the Father and the Spirit have appointed everything to the Son, because the Son is the firstborn of all creation. He's the heir. Just like Adam was the firstborn ever. That's why Jesus called second Adam, because he's a perfect man, obviously, and he's similar to Adam. God gave Adam authority over all the animals. Just like God gave Jesus authority over all the angels and all the angelic hosts. Yes. That's why Satan was jealous and he betrayed God, because he envied the fact that Jesus was the begotten Son of God. That's why he thought he could overtake Jesus' throne. And the Father, Son, and Spirit, so that's why he betrayed God and God cast him out of heaven. I saw Satan fall like lightning. Yeah. Sounds like, holy shit, I have a new gift. I never thought of it before. In the bosom of the Father, like a baby's in the bosom of his womb. Yes, Sam. So you put all these passages together before I talk about the other topic here. You have many passages that says Jesus is God, many passages that says Jesus is eternal, and you also have passages where Jesus says, I came forth from God. And you have a passage where Paul says he's the firstborn of all creation, which means preeminence, but also means he was born. And you have other passages where John says he's in the bosom of the Father. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. What does that mean, guys? He was there somewhere with the Father. I agree with that. But he was in, and then later on he says he was in the bosom of the Father. That means close relationship. I agree, but he was born, guys. He wasn't just there somewhere with the Father. If he was just there somewhere with the Father, guys, why is Jesus called the Son and why is the Father called the Father? You have to answer that question. Because they just came up with a name either. Yeah, they came up with some random name. I'll be your father, Jesus, and you'll be my son. Yeah, that's what happened. No. Jesus was born, that's why he's called his son. And that's why the Father is called his Father. And there you go. Shut my calendar. Don't hate me, guys.